He is 73, and you can take this to the bank. That man has never given a bribe. He has never received a bribe. That I am 110% sure of, and I am so proud of him. Today is July 7th, and it is my dad's 73rd birthday. He was born on the 7th of July, 1949. So if you've been around for some time, you know how that is really significant. Like 7 is considered a complete number, and my dad was born on 7/7/49. That's literally 7 times 7 is 49, and that's my dad's birthday. And that's why today's video is going to be a little different. As you may have seen from the title, I'm going to talk about the 10 life skills that I learned from my dad, the things that he taught me that have just made my life so much easy as a tribute to him. It is his 73rd birthday. Happy birthday, Daddy. So without much further ado, if you are new here, my name is Eva Mtali, and this is Eva Mtali Finance. On this channel, we talk about all things passive income, side hustle, as well as making money, and especially online. So if any of those topics sound exciting to you, you want to make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, and also make sure to hit the notification bell so that every single time I shoot a new video, you do not miss out. So without much further ado, I have my notes down here, so you're gonna see me looking down occasionally because I do not want to miss any of the important lessons, the important life skills that my dad taught me. So the number one life skill I learned from my dad from a very, very young age is saying no, and that no is a complete word. So my dad is that kind of a person who is very firm. When he says no, it's a no. And like when I was a little younger, it used to really bug me, but now that I'm a little older and I need to say no a lot more often, I am so glad that I learned the skill of just saying no, and that no is a complete word. I don't have to explain myself, whether it's to somebody or something else. If it's a no, it's a no. And especially when it comes to boundaries and space, yeah, no is a complete word. Then the number two thing that I learned from my dad, number two life skill that I learned from my dad, is order and predictability. So my dad is that kind of a person that if he puts this pen on top here and you pushed it by an inch, when he comes back, he's gonna know. So when I was a little younger, it used to be one of those things. I was like, what's the big deal? The pen is still there. But it's like, no, when I leave my pen here, I want it here when I come back. And he is such a predictable person. Like the moment he walks into a room, you can 99.9% tell what he is going to say, depending on what is happening around. Like he is so predictable. There are no surprises with him, and he's a very orderly kind of man. Like he taught me order, and those who know me personally, you know how much order is important to me. Of course, except my wardrobe, but everywhere else, I just like order, and I learned that from my dad. And being predictable. If I leave my pen here, I want to find it here, don't move it. Okay, number three lesson that I learned from my dad, life skill, is table etiquette. And this includes basic things like praying and giving grace for my meal. I remember when my dad taught us like may the food be blessed. And I remember when we were really struggling, and we'd be like saying may the food instead of may the food be blessed before we take it in Jesus' name. That's something that I learned from my dad, giving grace, giving gratitude when you get food, because it's not automatic. There's people who are actually not able to get that food, and when you have it, you should be grateful. Basic things like not talking with food in your mouth, that I learned from my dad. And one skill that I have noted so many people, including adults, struggle with, using a fork and a knife. I learned that from my dad. I remember he would take us to these really high-end restaurants when we were really, really young, and he taught us how to use a fork and knife. And guys, your fork stays on the left, your knife stays on the right. And let me know in the comment section below, do you want me to give a full tutorial on how to use a fork and knife? And of course, this rule depends on if you're left-handed, then your fork stays on the right. But if you are right-handed, which is majority of the people, your fork stays on the left and your knife stays on the right. Lesson number 4, life skill number 4 that my dad taught me is basic math. I remember from the moment I could start speaking, my dad taught us board math. Yeah, if you have been in school long enough, you know what board math is: bracket of division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. The order of whether you need to add, whether there's a bracket or not, that I learned from my dad. Like from the moment I could speak, I knew about the rule of board math. He also taught me the times table. Like from I think the age of 4 or thereabout, I could recite the entire times table from 1 times 1 up to 12 times 12. Like before I set foot in school, I could tell the entire math table, and not just I, like all my siblings. That's one thing that my dad taught us. The moment you started speaking, he teaches you board math and the times table, 1 times 1 up to 12 times 12. And then something else my dad taught me is how to read and write from a very, very, very young age, and also taught me how to sign. So if you look at my signature, it's identical to my dad's signature. The only difference is that where my dad puts a Y, I put an E, but our signatures are identical. Our handwritings are almost identical, only that mine is a little sketchy and his is a little nicer. But he taught me how to read, he taught me how to write, he taught me basic math, he taught me board math and all that. The number 5 life skill that my dad taught me was cooking. You guys, believe it or not, like the first time I ever set foot in the kitchen to cook was when I was, I think, 9 years old. So my mom had traveled for the funeral, and every day at 4 o'clock, my dad takes porridge. So my dad told me to make porridge, and I didn't know. So what I knew was that you need flour and water, but I wasn't sure of the process. So I just took water, I let it boil, then I put flour and put it in there. And then when I started stirring, you can guess what happened? The thing became like ugali. And I was just like, my goodness, what am I gonna do? So I tried sieving it, it couldn't work. So it was like a whole hour, and my dad is here waiting for the porridge and it's not showing up. So he decided to come to the kitchen to check what is going on. And he finds out his dear girl has made ugali instead of porridge. And my dad was shocked that I didn't know how to cook. He actually used to think that I knew how to cook because I'd be like in the kitchen, but I just never knew how to cook. So when my mom came back, he said, you know what? These girls need to know how to cook. And from that day henceforth, we would take turns with my elder sister and be in the kitchen, cook and clean. And I hated it then, but now there's nothing I love more than cooking, even though I don't do it as much, but I really love cooking. So thank you. Life skill number 7 that I also learned from my dad, that is also closer to cooking, is cleaning. Yeah, so my dad loves orders so much, like I've already mentioned, and he'd always be like, you guys, you have to spread your bed, you have to do the laundry, you have to clean the house, you have to do all these kind of things. And that also, even to wash with my hands. If I went to boarding school, and that's the first time I actually learned how to wash with my hands, even though I don't do it anymore. For the last, I think, 15 years, I have never done any laundry with my hands, and it's a blessing that I thank God for, but at least I know that skill. Life skill number 8 that my dad taught me is giving your all, like 110%, and especially in the workplace. Like, my dad is that kind of person who is so hardworking. Like, he is 73 now, and he is an engineer, but you will find him in the hot sun in Malindi trying to make sure that the roads and the bridges and everything is done to standard. Like, and being the kind of person who doesn't like bend the rules or do anything, he'll make sure everything is done to standard. The ratio of the bitumen and the sand and the cement and everything is done really well. And those who know me, you know my work ethic. Like, I would rather die than do shoddy work. Like, I just want to make sure that everything is done so well. Whatever I find my hands to do, I want to give it 110%, and that is something that I learned from my dad. Life skill number 8 that my dad taught me is saying no to bribery and corruption. I remember when we were a little younger, by the way, we are like 6 in my family, 3 boys, 3 girls, then my dad and my mom, That's a huge family of 8. And we had like a really small car. It was a Datsun KRV 150, I will never forget. And like, I don't know why my dad really loved that car, but it was so tiny and it always had issues. Like if it wasn't the tires that were finished, it was, I don't know, the insurance that expired or something. And every single time the police would stop us and expect to get a bribe from my dad, he'd be like, no, just write for me the offense and I'll go to court, and you'd go to court and pay the fine. Every single day, I remember when we were younger, until it reached a point. So there used to be like a roadblock, like I remember when we were staying in Kericho, and we'd be driving to Kisumu every Saturday for church. So there's a roadblock at the junction that one goes to Kisii and one goes to Kisumu. And there used to be cops there that with the time when they figured that my dad was not going to give any bribe, he wasn't going to be corrupt. Anytime they saw our brown Datsun KRV 150 coming, they would look on the other side because they're like, you know what, this guy is not going to budge. And that is something that I learned from my dad. He is 73 and you can take this to the bank. That man has never given a bribe. He has never received a bribe. That I am 110% sure of, and I am so proud of him. And that is something I have learned from him. Say no to bribery, say no to corruption. It just makes life difficult, especially for those who don't have money to get corrupt. And if everyone just follows the system, then the people who insist on bribes and corruption are just gonna get tired. Skill number 9 that my dad taught me is personal finance, and specifically 3 main things. So number 1, being prudent with cash. So one thing that I never knew until much later in my life, I didn't know that we were rich because we weren't poor, but I didn't know that we were rich. And until when it came to going to university, and my dad said, you don't have to go to public university. And by the way, those days in the 90s, if you went to uni, like school fees was like really minimal. They actually used to pay guys, boom, to go to uni. But my dad decided to take me to a private university. It was really expensive. And I don't remember any time being chased away from school for non-payment of school fee, or any of my siblings being chased away from school. It was a pretty modest life. And I just, much later in my life, that's when I realized the number of people that my dad used to support, whether it's in terms of, you know, you need money here for the treatment, you need money for school, you need here and there. And I just didn't realize, because my dad was very prudent. He is still very prudent, and he's very humble. Like, you won't even tell like he's an engineer. You won't even tell that he had like some really average middle life Kenyan. You couldn't tell because he was really humble, like even now. And that is something that I learned from my dad. Like, you don't have to be showy or to show off, just be humble. And something else I also learned from my dad is living within your means. Like, my dad, I don't even think like debt, it's something he used to tell us, and he still tells us until today. Shun debt like the plague. Like, he used to tell us, you do not need to be in debt. Debt is slavery. And that is something I have tried to live in. I have a few debts here and there, and mostly it's for investment because I just don't want to have my money lying around there. And I make sure it doesn't go beyond 1 year, but that is something that I learned from my dad. But these other little debts, GM Shwari, Mkopa, Nini, those I really try to avoid, and that is something that I learned from my dad. I don't even think he's ever taken a debt. I'm gonna ask him. I should have asked him before this video, but I don't think my dad has ever taken a debt or owes anybody any money. I doubt it, highly doubt it. Like, he really hates debt, and he constantly tells us avoid debt at all costs. Something else that he's taught us, so there's being prudent with cash, avoiding debt, living within your means. Number 10 life skill that I learned from my dad is the fear of the Lord. Like, my dad introduced me to the Lord. He introduced me to the blessings of the righteous that comes from the Lord. And specifically, I remember he used to tell us, he would quote Psalm 37 verse 25, which says, I have been young and now I am old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, or his seed begging for bread. That's like the most powerful lesson that my dad has taught me. Like, our actions are gonna determine whether our kids beg for bread or not. And this is something he used to tell us. Generally, it doesn't mean that you're not gonna have problems, you're not gonna be poor, or you're not gonna think, but it just means that God provides sufficiently for his people. And when you read Romans chapter 8 verses 28, it's gonna be according to his will. So sometimes it may not be what we want or what we desire. If it's not according to his will, we will not have it. And my dad always stressed that the power of righteousness and the blessing of the Lord. Even if you have my phone number, you have probably even seen my WhatsApp status is very clear. It always says the gift of the Lord, he gives it and he adds no sorrow with it. So those are life skills that my dad taught me from a very young age. It pays to serve God, mind his business, whether it comes to giving tithe, returning your tithes, whether it comes to just basic Christianity is a skill that I learned from my dad, and I can tell you guys I have benefited immensely from the blessings that comes with fearing the Lord. Well guys, that's it for today in terms of the 10 life skills that my dad taught me. Let me know in the comment section below, are any of these things similar to what maybe your dad, your mom, your guardians have taught you, the skills they have imparted on you? And which of these surprised you? Yeah, if you liked this video, guys, please remember to give it a thumbs up, leave a sweet comment below, and share it with all other people that might also find it useful. Thank you for staying up to the very end of this video. I definitely look forward to meeting you on the next one. Bye guys.